The year 1862 whispered tales of an unforgiving land, a vast and relentless expanse known as the Arizona Desert. It was a place where life clung precariously, and secrets were swallowed whole by the endless, shimmering horizon. In that fateful year, a profound sorrow settled upon the fledgling frontier when 6 young women, each carrying the promise of new life within her, vanished without a trace. Their disappearance was not a mere incident, it was an event that ripped through the sparse settlements, leaving behind a gaping wound of uncertainty and fear. The desert, indifferent to human pleas or laments, held its counsel, allowing the mystery to fester and grow, weaving itself into the very fabric of local folklore. For 2 long decades, the fate of these pregnant girls remained an unanswered question, a chilling legend passed down through generations, dimming any prospects of true happiness or lasting joy for those who remembered. The desert's harsh wisdom seemed to dictate that some secrets were meant to stay buried, a silent testament to its overwhelming power. But time, even in the most desolate of places, sometimes yields unexpected revelations. 20 years after that devastating vanishing act, when hope for any resolution had long since faded, a solitary rancher, a man accustomed to the quiet companionship of the open range, would stumble upon something extraordinary. Far from any path, hidden away by the elements, a forgotten object lay waiting. This unexpected discovery, a small relic from a distant past, carried the potential to finally unravel the intricate threads of the long-standing enigma. It promised not wealth in gold, but the priceless wealth of truth, holding the key to unlocking the desert's whispered secrets and perhaps, at last, offering a measure of peace to the restless spirits of the past. As the winds of change began to stir the ancient sands, the stage was set for a journey into history, an unfolding narrative that demanded attention. The silence of 20 years was about to be broken, and the truth of 1862 prepared to emerge from the desert's embrace. Elias lived a life carved from the stark Arizona desert, his days measured by the sun's arc and the quiet rhythm of his ranch. Solitary for years, he found a peculiar peace in the vast emptiness, rarely seeing another soul. One sweltering afternoon, riding a seldom-used trail scouting for cattle, a subtle glint caught his eye, an anomaly beneath a gnarled mesquite bush, hinting at something out of place. Dismounting, Elias approached with the caution of a man accustomed to the desert's surprises. What he saw was a worn, leather saddlebag, partially buried and bleached by decades of sun and sand. It looked lost, forgotten, left to the elements for an eternity. Dust coated its cracked surface, the leather groaned softly as he worked to free it. He pulled it out, surprisingly light, and a faint, musty scent rose into the still air. Clearly from another time, its presence stirred a quiet sense of wonder. With careful hands, Elias unbuckled the deteriorated straps. Inside, nestled among fine desert dust, lay fragile, faded belongings. There were 2 delicate women's sun hats, their brims soft, ribbons long since muted. Alongside them were a small, tarnished silver locket, its engraving almost worn smooth, and a comb made of bone, surprisingly intact. Each object, though silent, hummed with forgotten stories, echoes of lives that had once graced this land. This unexpected, tangible connection to a human past brought a tiny spark of something akin to joy to his often somber spirit. This discovery was far from any material wealth, yet it held a richness that transcended coin or cattle. It was the wealth of untold history, a profound, silent wisdom emanating from these forgotten relics. The sight of those abandoned personal effects, so intimate and vulnerable, stirred an immediate and unsettling curiosity in his lonely heart. For years, Elias had been content in his solitude, but these artifacts now pricked at his consciousness, demanding attention. The desert had revealed a fragment, a tantalizing clue hinting at a long-lost human drama. A quiet urgency began to replace his usual calm, pulling him towards an unknown path, hinting at a subtle promise of future happiness within the unfolding mystery. Elias held the delicate bonnets, feeling their fragile weight in his calloused hands. The sun, once a comforting presence, now seemed to cast long, questioning shadows across his small cabin. As he carefully examined the other personal items, a tarnished locket, a small, faded handkerchief embroidered with an initial, a sense of unease settled deeper within him. These weren't mere lost items, they spoke of lives, of individuals, and of a sorrow that echoed from the past. His mind, usually occupied with the rhythms of ranch life and the silent companionship of the desert, began to wander. He remembered the whispered tales, the legends shared around campfires by grizzled prospectors and weary travelers. Stories of young, hopeful women who had vanished without a trace on these very trails, swallowed by the vast, unforgiving landscape. These were not tales of mythical beasts, but of human vulnerability against the wild frontier, evoking profound loss. The desert, though a source of his quiet sustenance and a landscape he understood with intuitive wisdom, held secrets he hadn't sought. Yet with these bonnets, those forgotten whispers began to stir, growing louder. A strange mix of curiosity and duty filled him. He couldn't simply put them aside to be forgotten once more. The thought was unbearable. His solitary existence had until now been a source of simple happiness, a peaceful wealth measured not in coin but in the quietude of his days. This discovery, though unsettling, hinted at a deeper connection to human experience, a shared thread of joy and sorrow transcending time. Driven by this newfound resolve, Elias made a decision. He would leave his ranch for a short while, venturing into the nearest dusty, sun-baked settlement. It was a place he rarely visited, preferring solitude. But there, amidst the few inhabitants, he hoped to find answers. Perhaps an old-timer would recognize the items or remember the stories more clearly. He carefully packed the bonnets and other objects, wrapping them as precious relics. The journey, though short, felt significant, a departure from his routine. He rode slowly, his gaze sweeping the horizon, feeling the weight of the past. He wasn't seeking personal wealth or glory, his quest was for knowledge, for understanding, a wisdom that could bring solace to forgotten souls. There was a quiet joy in this purpose, unexpected for a man long apart from the world's affairs. He was seeking a connection, bridging the gap between present and those distant, tragic echoes. Elias entered the dusty saloon, its dim light and stale air hinting at untold stories. He approached the old barkeeper, whose wrinkled face held quiet wisdom. Elias felt an unexpected kinship. He ordered a drink, then mentioned the old bonnets and rumors of women lost to the desert. The barkeeper listened, his gaze distant, a familiar sadness settling upon him as he prepared to speak of a lingering sorrow. Slowly, the old man began to recount the detailed narrative, his voice raspy but clear, bringing the rumor into Elias' present. He spoke of 6 young women full of youthful dreams of happiness, seeking wealth and new lives. Pregnant and carrying the unspoken joy of families, they believed in opportunity. But the desert, he recounted, had been unforgiving that year. Sudden sandstorm and flash flood sealed their fate. He described the community's despair, a stark reminder of how quickly joy could be snatched away. As the barkeeper's words painted a vivid, heartbreaking picture, the tragedy settled upon Elias with immense weight. It was no longer an abstract tale, it was a tangible, agonizing loss. The fragile bonnets, once curiosities, now felt like echoes of lives extinguished too soon. The story, shared with such somber wisdom, weighed heavily on Elias' conscience. He felt a profound sense of responsibility, a compelling urge to do more than just listen, transforming his solitary existence into something purposeful. Elias returned to his desolate ranch, the detailed account of the 6 vanished women echoing in the quiet chambers of his mind. The old tavern keeper's words had painted a vivid picture of despair, a tragedy that had once been merely a distant whisper, now a tangible weight pressing on his solitary conscience. He could no longer view the delicate bonnets and personal trinkets as mere historical curiosities. They were silent testimonies, haunting fragments of lives abruptly cut short, of futures unlived, and of the profound sorrow that must have engulfed their families. An unusual empathy stirred within him, a sensation foreign to a man accustomed to the stark solitude of the desert. He had always found a quiet contentment in his isolation, a simple life devoid of the complexities of human interaction. But now a deeper calling emerged, challenging the comfortable boundaries of his existence. He felt a profound, almost spiritual need to act, to not simply turn away from this unearthed sorrow. His discovery, far from being a random event, now felt like a solemn summons. It wasn't about seeking personal wealth or glory, the desert offered little of either. Instead, it was about finding a different kind of happiness, one rooted in purpose and compassion. He contemplated the vast, indifferent landscape around him, a place that had always mirrored his own self-imposed detachment. Yet the images of the young women, their hopeful journeys ending in an unknown fate, pierced through his stoicism. A quiet wisdom began to settle upon him, an understanding that true peace often came from confronting unresolved pain, not from ignoring it. He realized that giving a voice to the forgotten, even after so many years, held a profound significance. His usual routine of tending to his livestock and mending fences felt trivial compared to the silent plea those old relics seemed to make. The very loneliness that had defined him for so long began to transform. It wasn't a void to be endured anymore, but a quiet wellspring of determination. This wasn't a task he sought out, it was a burden he instinctively chose to carry. There was no grand announcement, no dramatic declaration, just a silent, unwavering resolve. He would delve into the heart of this mystery, not for any reward, but to honor those lost lives, to bring a measure of peace to their memory, and perhaps in so doing find a deeper sense of joy within himself. The desert had witnessed countless stories, but this one, he knew, deserved its closure. His mission was clear, though daunting. He would find the truth for them, guided by a sense of duty that now burned brighter than any sun. The path ahead stretched endlessly, a relentless expanse of sun-baked earth and shifting sands that seemed determined to swallow any sign of life. What began as a hopeful quest swiftly transformed into an arduous trial, testing Elias' resolve with every burning step. The desert, unforgiving and vast, exerted its power, a silent, ancient force that made human endeavors feel minuscule and fragile. Each dawn brought not the promise of ease, but a renewed battle against the elements. The sky, a merciless dome of blue, radiated heat that shimmered off the ground, turning the air into a suffocating embrace. Thirst became a constant companion, a gnawing ache that overshadowed all other sensations. Elias' lips cracked, his throat felt like sandpaper, and the precious water in his canteen dwindled with alarming speed. He moved slowly, deliberately, conserving every ounce of his dwindling energy, his boots kicking up fine dust that coated his clothes and blurred his vision. Then came the wind, not a gentle breeze, but a furious, whipping gale that heralded the arrival of the dreaded sandstorms. Walls of swirling grit rose on the horizon, advancing with a terrifying majesty, obscuring the sun and transforming the landscape into a blinding chaos. Elias would huddle low, pulling what little fabric he had over his face, feeling the stinging grains assault his skin, finding their way into every crevice, grating against his teeth. Breathing became a struggle, each intake of air a gritty reminder of the desert's raw power. These were moments when despair could easily take root, when the thought of simple happiness or a moment of true joy seemed like a distant, impossible dream. Yet something within him, a deep-seated determination, pushed back against the urge to surrender. He understood that true wealth was not in possessions, but in the resilience of the human spirit. Beyond the natural elements, the wilderness harbored its own dangers. The chilling rattle of a rattlesnake hidden amongst the rocks would send a jolt of adrenaline through him, a stark reminder of the fragile line between life and death in this unforgiving territory. Shadows in the distance, perhaps a coyote or something larger, kept him vigilant, especially as twilight draped the land in an eerie silence. Sleep was often fitful, disturbed by the unfamiliar sounds of the night and the ever-present awareness of his isolation. Every sunrise was a small victory, a testament to his endurance, and with it came a quiet sense of wisdom, a deeper understanding of his own limitations and strengths. The desert did not offer easy answers, it demanded persistence, stripping away all but the essential, refining his spirit through hardship. He pressed on, his mission a silent anchor against the overwhelming might of the land, one painstaking step after another, his resolve hardening with each challenge overcome. The vastness seemed to mock his efforts, threatening to swallow him whole, yet he continued, a solitary figure against an immense backdrop, his journey a testament to an unwavering commitment that defied the very elements. Character count 2,000, word count 326. Elias continued his arduous march across the vast, sun-baked desert. The relentless heat and the ever-present threat of sandstorms tested his resolve, pushing him close to the brink of exhaustion. Supplies dwindled with alarming speed, and a profound weariness settled deep within his bones, threatening to extinguish the last flicker of hope he harbored. It was then, amidst the desolate grandeur of the unforgiving landscape, that he spotted a faint wisp of smoke, curling lazily into the immense blue sky, a beacon of unexpected possibility in the otherwise empty expanse. Following its subtle invitation, Elias cautiously approached a secluded cluster of ancient, wind-sculpted rocks. There, nestled within a natural alcove, sat an old Native American man. His face, deeply etched by the passage of countless years and weathered by the relentless sun, held an ancient serenity and a profound depth of wisdom that seemed to emanate from the very earth beneath them. His dark, perceptive eyes met Elias' gaze with an unsettling calm, as if he had been expecting his arrival all along. Elias, despite his innate caution, felt an inexplicable pull, a quiet sense of shared humanity in this isolated and formidable place. He slowly approached, the delicate bonnet still carefully tucked away in his saddlebag, serving as a constant, heavy reminder of his solemn quest. Without a single spoken word, he began to convey his story, not through sentences, but with a series of quiet, earnest gestures, pointing to the expansive land around them, to the distant horizon where the tragedy had unfolded, and finally, with reverence, revealing the worn artifacts he carried. The old man listened with unhurried patience, his gaze shifting intently between Elias and the items he presented, his expression unwavering and contemplative. There was no hint of judgment, only a deep understanding that transcended any language barriers, a connection that seemed to bypass words entirely. It was as if he could intimately feel the lingering echoes of the past, the sorrow embedded in the very earth itself. His silence was not an absence, but a powerful presence, a vessel brimming with generations of accumulated wisdom. Elias felt an immense unburdening as he shared his heavy secret, sensing a faint flicker of happiness in the unexpected shared moment of understanding. The elder's subtle nod, a slight tilt of his head, communicated a clear recognition of the sorrow that had permeated the air for decades. He then slowly rose, his movements deliberate and graceful despite his apparent age. With a gnarled finger, he traced a path in the sand, not a conventional map with names, but a series of natural landmarks and subtle environmental cues known only to those intimately familiar with the land. This was not mere geography or simple directions. It was a narrative etched into the earth, passed down through ancient oral traditions, representing a true wealth of ancestral knowledge. He spoke no English, yet his deep, resonant hum and the precise movements of his hand conveyed a narrative as clear as any spoken dialogue could have been. He pointed towards a specific direction, indicating a winding canyon, a treacherous place where the elements often converged violently and unexpectedly. Ilias' heart quickened with a surge of quiet joy, a potent sense of vindication. This was not random guesswork, but the profound wisdom of someone intimately and innately connected to every stone, every whisper of wind, every hidden memory held by the desert itself. The path ahead remained perilous, still fraught with dangers and uncertainties, but it was no longer shrouded in an impenetrable fog of the unknown. He had found a guide not just through the challenging physical landscape, but through the emotional labyrinth of the past. A quiet sense of purpose filled him, rekindling his resolve, now steered by an ancient insight. This encounter marked a profound turning point in his solitary journey, enriching his understanding of human connection and revealing the true riches found in shared empathy and collective memory. Following the sage guidance received, Ilias pressed onward, his eyes now sharpened to perceive the subtle cues etched into the unforgiving landscape. The path, once merely a direction, now revealed itself as a tapestry of ecological memory, speaking volumes to those with the wisdom to listen. He began to notice anomalies that the untrained eye would dismiss, strange patterns of erosion on the leeward sides of ancient rock formations, indicating an incredibly powerful scouring wind that had swept through with a force rarely seen. Fine wind-borne sand had settled in crevices where it shouldn't, suggesting a vast, choking cloud that would have blinded and disoriented anyone caught within its grasp. This was the undeniable signature of a sandstorm of epic proportions, a swirling, suffocating entity that had reshaped the very contours of the earth. As he ventured deeper, a new set of clues emerged, overlaying the remnants of the wind's fury. Dried mud lines marked the sides of higher rocks, far above the usual water channels. Debris not of desert origin but clearly carried by force, fragments of splintered wood, an unnatural scattering of smaller, rounded stones, lay strewn across a wider area than any typical seasonal stream bed. These were the telltale signs of a flash flood, a sudden, merciless rush of water that transforms dry washes into raging torrents in mere moments. The sheer destructive power it represented was chilling. It was clear that no human, no matter how strong or prepared, could withstand such an onslaught. Ilias could almost visualize the dual horror, the terrifying darkness and disorientation of the sandstorm, immediately followed by the relentless, crushing force of the floodwaters. The scene was a stark, brutal testament to nature's indifference, illustrating a devastating picture that, while horrific, offered an undeniable, if painful, explanation. The remnants spoke not of malice, but of immense, unyielding power. He recognized the stark contrast between the fleeting hope for human happiness and the raw, untamed forces of this land. The loss felt profound, a silent witness to the abrupt end of potential joy. Though the land itself offered no tangible wealth, it provided a clarity, a hard-earned understanding that was, in its own way, invaluable. He understood now that the tragic fate was not a result of malice or human failing, but of an overwhelming natural event, a truth that brought a grim but necessary form of peace. Ilias pressed on, his resolve hardened by the sun and the dust, yet guided by an inner compass that drew him closer to the truth. The old native's words had resonated deeply, painting a picture of the land's hidden secrets, and now, finally, the landscape began to shift. He stumbled upon it unexpectedly, a narrow, winding cut in the earth, almost invisible until he was right on its edge. This was it, the hidden canyon, a natural funnel carved by millennia of flash floods and wind. The air within was still, heavy with the scent of dry earth and ancient silence. He descended carefully, his boots kicking up small clouds of dust that shimmered in the shafts of light filtering down from above. The walls rose steeply on either side, scarred and polished by rushing water, telling a story of immense power. As he moved deeper, the evidence became unmistakable, scattered along the sandy floor and caught amongst the gnarled roots of hardy desert plants. These weren't just random bits of debris, they were fragments that spoke volumes. A small, tarnished locket, half buried, a piece of fabric, faded but still recognizable as part of a dress. And then, heartbreakingly, a tiny, worn baby shoe, no bigger than his thumb. These remnants, so personal and poignant, had been carried here by the relentless force of water, trapped in this natural grave. There was no doubt this desolate chasm was the final resting place, the silent witness to the tragedy that had unfolded 20 years prior. The immense power of the desert, revealed in these last, poignant fragments, offered a devastatingly clear answer. It was a scene devoid of traditional happiness or overt joy, yet in the grim clarity there was a strange, undeniable form of wisdom gained. The true wealth he sought was not gold, but the stark reality of what happened, a truth bought with arduous effort. The mystery, which had haunted the region for so long, now lay exposed, raw and undeniable, amidst the stones and sand. The weight of knowing settled upon him, heavy yet paradoxically unburdening, as the final piece of the long-standing puzzle clicked into place. This was the painful, real answer that had eluded so many for so long. With a heart heavy yet resolute, Elias stood at the sight of profound sorrow, the hidden gorge that held the final, undeniable truth. The wind, a mournful whisper through the rocks, seemed to carry echoes of lives abruptly cut short. He knelt dusk-gritty beneath his calloused hands and carefully gathered the last scattered remnants. A frayed piece of fabric, a tarnished button, a splinter of wood, each item spoke volumes, a silent testament to lives that had once possessed them. His discovery had replaced decades of mystery with raw, tangible sadness. It was not the terrifying end of legends, but a sudden, overwhelming force of nature. The desert had claimed them, not with malice, but with indifference. A deep sense of reverence guided his actions. These young women, mothers-to-be, had faced their final moments here alone. Elias felt an overwhelming urge to offer them what the world had denied, a final, respectful acknowledgement. He considered how best to honor them in this desolate, yet sacred place. He meticulously cleared a small area amidst the ancient stones, gathering pebbles and larger rocks to form a simple cairn. Each stone placed was an offering, a silent prayer, a recognition of life's preciousness. This makeshift memorial, humble as it was, represented a beacon against forgetfulness, a physical mark where memory could finally rest. As he worked, a profound sense of wisdom settled over him, born from confronting life's deepest vulnerabilities. He reflected on the ephemeral nature of happiness, how quickly joy could be extinguished, and the immense, irreplaceable wealth inherent in simply being alive. These women had been robbed of the future's promise, the laughter of children, the quiet satisfaction of a life lived. He imagined their dreams, their hopes for motherhood, the simple pleasures they had looked forward to. The desert, for all its harshness, had now become their eternal resting place, a vast, silent guardian. Elias concluded his task, stepping back to observe the crude monument. It was unassuming, yet it pulsed with a quiet dignity, a testament to lives that mattered. In the profound silence of the desert, broken only by the distant cry of a hawk, he offered them a final, dignified farewell. His voice, usually gruff, softened into a whisper, speaking words of peace, of remembrance, of the comfort he hoped they had found beyond this earthly existence. It was a moment of deep, personal connection, bridging 20 years of silence with an act of heartfelt compassion. He felt a quiet sense of closure, not for himself, but for them, and for the community. The true wealth of this endeavor was not in gold, but in the restoration of a forgotten narrative, offering solace where only haunting questions had remained. It was a somber piece, yet a piece nonetheless, imbued with the quiet grace of giving voice to the voiceless, bringing a measure of the joy they deserved to their lingering memory. Elias rode back into the dusty town, his saddlebag lighter than before, yet his heart carried a profound weight, mingled with a quiet sense of accomplishment. He had returned not empty-handed, but with answers, a precious, albeit somber, form of wealth that transcended any material possession. The news of his return and the subtle change in his demeanor quickly spread through the small, tightly knit community. People looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, sensing that the solitary rancher had stumbled upon something significant. He sought out the tabernero, the same old man who had first recounted the tragic tale of the 6 missing women. With a calm, measured voice, Elias began to recount his journey, describing the unforgiving landscape, the ancient Native American guide, and finally the desolate yet revealing hidden gorge. He spoke of the scattered remnants, the undeniable signs of a fierce, sudden natural disaster, not a malicious act, but the brutal, indifferent hand of the desert itself. As Elias shared the details, the hushed whispers of the town square ceased, replaced by a collective intake of breath. The vivid imagery painted by his words began to chip away at the decades-old shroud of mystery and lingering fear that had cloaked their lives. For 20 long years, the disappearance of those pregnant girls had been a dark cloud, a chilling what-if-that fed anxieties about the untamed wilderness and the unknown dangers lurking beyond their safe haven. Some had feared foul play, others a more supernatural doom, leading to a pervasive unease that subtly dampened the town's spirit. But now the truth, stark and heartbreaking as it was, began to settle upon them. It was a truth that removed the horrifying uncertainty, replacing it with a painful yet understandable reality. A palpable shift occurred. The fear, once a cold, creeping shadow, began to recede, replaced by a wave of communal grief and an unexpected sense of relief. A collective sigh seemed to ripple through the gathering crowd. The information Elias brought was not a tale of heroic rescue or miraculous survival, but it was something far more important for their collective psyche. It was closure. The community, which had for so long been denied the basic right to mourn, could now finally begin that essential process. Tears flowed freely, not just for the lost girls and their unborn children, but also for the long-held burden that had finally been lifted. There was a quiet joy in the air, a peculiar happiness born from the cessation of dread. The shared experience of receiving this painful truth created a new bond among them, a testament to their resilience and shared humanity. Elias, in his quiet pursuit of the truth, had not only found answers but had also bestowed a profound wisdom upon the community, reminding them that even in the face of immense loss, understanding could bring a form of peace, and with peace the true healing could at last begin. The desert had claimed lives, but Elias' dedicated quest had allowed the living to finally find their way back to a path of quiet acceptance and remembrance. The desert had always been a silent companion to Elias, mirroring his solitude. Yet the journey, sparked by a rusted saddlebag and the haunting memory of 6 lost lives, profoundly reshaped his connection to that vast landscape and, more importantly, to himself. His ranch was no longer merely a refuge, but a home echoing with history, where the wind carried whispers of stories finally laid to rest. The deep loneliness that had long defined him began to recede, replaced by a quiet, profound sense of renewed purpose. It was a gradual unfolding, like the desert bloom after rare rain. Elias discovered a new direction, a motivation born not of necessity, but of empathy and resolution. He continued his life, tending his animals and land, the rhythm of his daily tasks largely unchanged, yet everything felt different. The dust beneath his boots held deeper significance. The vast sky above now offered not just a canopy for isolation, but a boundless expanse for his newfound belonging. The heavy burden of unanswered questions, lifted for the community, had simultaneously unburdened Elias' own soul. He now carried the memory of the young women, not as a sorrowful weight, but as a testament to resilience. This quiet act of remembrance infused him with a subtle yet pervasive sense of happiness, a deep contentment. Material riches were not what he gained. Instead, he accumulated something far more valuable, the wisdom born from confronting the past, honoring the forgotten, and understanding the profound interconnectedness of lives. His heart, once a solitary echo, now felt lighter, permeated by a quiet joy that resonated with the peaceful sleep he found. He had given voice to those who could no longer speak, providing closure to a community long haunted by mystery. This compassionate dedication brought unique fulfillment, enriching his life unexpectedly. Elias gazed at the familiar horizon, a quiet smile gracing his weathered face. The desert still stretched endlessly, but it no longer felt empty. It was filled with stories, with memories, and with the powerful understanding that even in desolate places, humanity's search for truth and peace could flourish. His specific quest concluded, but his transformation was just beginning, proof that purpose could be found in unexpected corners, bringing invaluable richness to the human spirit. He was profoundly grateful for the chance to have given voice to the forgotten, forever changed by the journey and carrying the quiet dignity of one who had answered history's call.